Richard Quinlan, I was a student here. My father was a professor here. So I graduated from here, went on to get my bachelor's degree, went on to law school. And then once I came back and was in practice, I taught business law here on an adjunct basis for several years. I think the first time I taught was like 1981, 82, and then from like, I want to say 88 or 89 to 96, I would teach one or two courses a semester, and then sometimes during the summer.
Okay. So let's go back to the first time you were a student here. What year are we talking about?
1973.
All right. So that means, what, Hartford Road campus?
I had classes at Hartford Road. I had also had...
East campus.
Yep, and I had courses down the lower, the temporaries, the 50-year-old temporaries.
Right. What was the first reason that made you decide to come to MCC?
Well, with my father teaching here, there was obviously a long history. I mean, I can remember when the science department used to be on a three-family house over on East Center Street, so it was kind of in the blood. And, let's face it, there were, times were not exactly great. I needed a good but inexpensive education, at least to start off with. So, this fit the bill perfectly.
Give us some impression of what those first few class sessions were like and what the rooms were like.
Well, as I said, they were in the temporaries, and used to go from building to building. I had some I thought were very very good professors here. Dick Day, as a matter of fact, he was my psychology professor, and I went on to become a psychology major. Dr. Day. Matter of fact, I saw him a few weeks ago. I was at a fundraiser, and his wife came up to me, and I don't think I'd ever met her, but she says to me, you look just like. And I said, well, yeah, and she was there with Dr. Day.
Right.
So, but the classes, they were good. They weren't huge classes. When I got up to, I finished my undergraduate at McGill, and we had some classes there where you'd have, 600 to 1,000 students in in one class. I mean, just enormous numbers. Here you were really in that, 30 or so range, as I recall. But some good professors, good classes.
And so were you here right out of high school?
Yes. Yeah.
What was your sense of one of the things we hear from folks who are coming into interviews, different age range in the classroom?
There were.
What was that experience like?
It was good. I found I appreciated it more when I was teaching here, because I'd have students, fresh out of high school, and then some in their 60s and ages in between, police officers, going on getting degrees, or people in the paralegal program, or some people probably eventually hoping to go to law school.
Yeah.
But I would say in most of my classes that I from when I was a student here, my recollection is that there were probably more, my age-ish, as opposed to having a lot of older students. So there were certainly some.
Any stories you can share with us? Anybody who sticks out in your mind in terms of either a student or a faculty member?
I'm not real good with stories or anecdotes. I remember Dr. Sutherland. And I remember saying he always used to have right before exams, because I had, I think, a couple courses with him. He says, don't worry about it too much. He says, in 100 years from now, nobody's ever going to know whether you passed this test or passed this course. It's not going to matter. And I think that was a very good, perspective, to give to the students, because some people are just like panicking over it, and obviously it is important. I mean, he wasn't downplaying to the sense of don't care and don't study, maybe because you are there for an education which leads to other things, etc. But I think his point was it's not the end of the world, and there's always going to be a tomorrow, and you can. So that was very very good advice, I think, and I've used it. I've imparted it on to some of my students in classes.
So after your law degree, you come back and begin teaching here. How did things change?
Well, certainly the campus changed a lot. The enrollment was much bigger than it was when I was here. You've got some beautiful buildings, but as I was saying before, I noticed, I think, a greater age range, and I think an increase in the minority population, Hispanics and African Americans, a higher percentage than when I was here as a student. And I think not to say it wasn't professional then, but it's just been, I think, increasing. It's quite a fine institution.
Any challenges that you found being back here as an instructor in the classroom now, in working with those 20 or 30 students in your classroom?
Keeping in mind that some high school programs and school districts are better than others. So you're all in the same, they're all in the same class, but I don't think they're people necessarily starting off at the same level. And I'm sure that's going to be true in any class in any school, but probably to a lesser degree because it's pretty much an open enrollment here, I believe, as opposed to having to apply to a school like Yale, which I didn't get into in law school, But keeping that in mind that again, everybody's not starting off at the same, but at the same time, making sure that, or at least striking a balance between keeping a high standard, but not making it too high.
Right.
As far as teaching the class and expectations.
Right. You have to meet students at different levels, and that can be very challenging in the classroom.
Absolutely.
That's something you feel you have to address with each class that you teach, and when you were teaching.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
So you're no longer teaching here.
Correct. I haven't taught here for a number of years, but when actually my father told me about this, and I contacted Dr. Please, but I was reminded of Dr. Sutherland's history class where he did an oral history project of Manchester folks, and he asked me if I would do one of those, and I did. I actually interviewed Arthur Illing from middle school. When I went there, it was Illing Junior High School, but of course I think they call it middle school now.
Right.
And of course, it's quite interesting because, like I said, I had gone to that school, and he must have been around 90 or so at that point, and I was like maybe 18 because I was young, and I'm interviewing him, and his hand started shaking. He had this paper in his hand, and it was like making all this noise. I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen here now? But that oral history program was quite interesting.
That's in the archives, by the way.
Yeah, that's what. So I was wondering. I didn't know exactly what this is about. I was wondering if it was something similar to that.
Can I just jump in?
Yes.
You were involved with the Alumni Association, weren't you?
Yes. I
that?
actually helped found it. I was on the initial board, helped write the Constitution and the bylaws, and actually helped get the 501c3 status, the tax exempt status for the Alumni Association.
Any programs or events or projects that you were involved with through the Alumni Association?
Several of the early fundraisers. I can remember mounting the phone banks here and calling up alumni for donations.
Right.
Yeah.
If you met someone who was going to be hired here as an instructor, starting their career at MCC, what kind of advice would you give them about being a first-time professor here?
I would say, they'll see that it's quite a diverse student body, and that depending on whether that person has ever taught anywhere before or just coming here for the first time would obviously make a difference. If they're an experienced teacher, then there's probably not a lot I could impart to them. But especially if someone is just starting out, to not be surprised at the range of the student body in terms of both, I think, intelligence, but also in hard work. Many schools, the typical four-year undergraduate program, you're going to have an occasional older student, but everybody's going to be pretty homogeneous in terms of age. Whereas here, as I was saying before, in a class you're going to have a wide range. You're also going to get, a wide range of people who are willing to work hard, and the reason why they're here. It's not just because they need something to do during the day. They're, again, trying to either start a second career, advance in their existing career, change fields, move on. I had I would say probably the typical experience. I'd have some students that I look over there and they're, sleeping. I didn't think hopefully it wasn't my teaching, But like I said, the students that are, working hard, and sometimes you need to maybe give them a little break, cut a little slack, but not often. I mean, I think the older students, they're here for a reason.
In the department that you taught in, how did you feel as a part-time instructor? How did you feel you were supported by the department of the full-timers, and can you talk about some of those folks who may have helped you?
I didn't have much contact with the full-timers, but the support staff here was very good. We had eventually they came into these computerized testing. Before I was writing the exams out by hand, but correcting them there was a lot of help in correcting them, and of course the biggest pressure was getting your grades in on that that time. Of course, I'm sure that's true everywhere, and I'm sure it hasn't changed here either. But I thought I think it was Dick Vizard ran the program at that point, and Nance Krashenski came in after I was started, and they were both very knowledgeable, very, very good administrators.
Right. Great. Okay. Anything else you might want to add for us? Any experiences that you've had, or?
No, like I said, it's. I started out when I was, a child almost. Seen it grow from, like I said, having a campus at Hartford Road, and then as I said before, the science department and a three-family house on East Center Street to, the interim temporary buildings, which were here for a long time, and then, the beautiful campuses that they've got now.
So did your dad teach in that three-story house?
I don't know if they had classes there or not.
They had art classes, on Center Street?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they had art classes. I don't know if they had anything else there.
And he was there. He shared an office with Professor Dobson and Professor Eschholz, who come to the parents' house many times for dinner.
The Quinlan clan. I'm just curious, Rich, when you came here, was it first choice, or was it something your parents steered you into, or why did you come to MCC? You may have asked that question, but what was the reason? It was I guess a mutual decision.
Okay. Sad to say, I had torn my knee cartilage when I was a senior in high school. And the weekend they had the SATs, I was in the hospital, so I missed the SATs. Not that that's an excuse, but I think it was almost a given that I would start off here and go somewhere else. I think as a child of a professor, I don't think I had to pay for tuition. I had to pay for my books on my own, but my parents had 6 kids, and my mother never worked, so outside the house. So money wasn't money was not plentiful, but at the same time we felt that this would be a good education and a good stepping stone at the same time.
Was it a problem for you to be taking classes here knowing full well your father was around, or that didn't bother you?
No, it didn't bother me. As a matter of fact, I actually took his chemistry course. Yeah, both courses. I got an A and a B. The second semester was much harder than the first semester.
That's what everybody says.
I won 11. That's a breeze. But I won 12. That's tough.
Right.
But
of course, I don't recall, but it seemed to me you had several of your brothers You have twin brothers, didn't you?
Yes, I have two brothers that are
Were they at
twins.
school at the same time you were? Or you
They're about 8 years younger than I.
okay.
But I know my brother Tom took courses here.
Yeah.
I think my brother, I don't remember Tim graduated, his twin brother, graduated from Central. I don't know if he took courses here or not.
So maybe the other question is, looking at it from the opposite point of view, when you left here and went to, I believe, McGill University,
Mhm.
did you see any difference in terms of the classroom and the learning experience between the two colleges?
Well, as I said before, I mean, there it was a totally different experience. Up there, you had a lecture twice. Say in a three credit course, you had a lecture twice a week by a professor in a lecture hall. I think that the smallest class that I ever had there was 80 students. The third class during the week was taught by a TA, a graduate student teaching assistant, in a small group. So what they would do is you would take, maybe 10 or 15 from that large class, and have it done by a TA. But there was very little, raising your hand and asking questions during the professor lecture, which you could certainly do at MCC. And I think to a person, I would say that every professor encouraged that. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. So it was a totally different experience. It was a different country, but I mean, it was like I said, a big lecture, and that was pretty much.
Well, thanks. Appreciate you coming in.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
It's my pleasure.